Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we are going to be continuing on with our roster building series, specifically talking about Galactic Legend farm preps. And the reason why that face and tone kind of come up is because we're actually talking about the Profundity, which is not really a Galactic Legend, but kind of is. Again, the whole point of these videos is when you're going after a Galactic Legend like Lord Vader or Jedi Master Luke, or a really expensive ship like Profundity Executor, or very soon to be the Leviathan, you have to typically relic up a ton of characters, and there always kind of comes to this question of, all right, cool, but A, which one do I start with first that'll already start yielding me results before I even actually get to do the event? And beyond that, what are the other characters that I need to be able to fill the rest of the holes? Because you don't get, the way CG has the setup, when you go after Executive Profundity, you don't get these perfectly built ground teams by building the fleet. In fact, a lot of the times, the whole point of this is to get you to gear up characters you would never gear up for ground. So with that being said, we're going to get into this. And I do want to make one little caveat, and I didn't make this on Executor, and someone made a really good point in the comments. If you are planning on, when you get to the event, you have everything ready, regardless of how you do it, if you're planning on shelling out a huge amount of crystals up front, then you really want to follow this list as best as you can. However, if you are not planning on shelling out crystals and just doing this once a month for like the next 18 months until you have it unlocked at 7 stars, then maybe it's best to leave some of these requirements, not all, but some of these requirements until after. What do I mean by that? So K2SO, he is not actually a requirement for Profundity, but to get the best bang for your buck for both the Profundity fleet as well as the Rogue One squad on ground, you really want him as soon as possible. But again, if you're doing this farm slowly over time, you're going to want to leave him till last. So let's get into it though and talk about who is the most important for your roster. It's Dash Rendar. The dude is absolutely amazing, and the big reason why for a building roster, sometimes you're going to struggle to be able to put teams together, and he just doesn't have that issue at all. He's a scoundrel, he's a scoundrel leader, he's also a smuggler, which pretty much means you can put him in any squad out there that has a scoundrel in it, and he is going to make it better. He can use under his own lead, which is really well if you already have BAM unlocked. His Seeker missiles, this counts as 15 hits, which that's cool, you know, that does damage, it's awesome and whatnot. But on top of that, this also means that BAM, if he's in his poop stance, he gets 15 birds instantly. So even in 3v3, BAM can just one-shot a character because, and this also just does really good damage because this is hitting so many times. It also generates a ton of turn meter, whether you're on his lead, because critical hits generate turn meter through his lead, or if you're using BAM lead, damage, any instance of damage also generates turn meter. So he's just a really, really stinking good attacker. He can synergize super well with Vandor and L3, but does not need to. Again, he can be working to the band team. There's other light side teams, like a little more advanced, like Ray, or he can even use like a smuggler squad with, say, Kira and Nest, and still present really good value there. So that's why he's first. Number one, he's good. It's also probably worth mentioning that his relic level is appropriate, and what I mean by that is a lot of times we get characters that are requirements, and the character is actually kind of good, but the relic level is super stupid. A really good example of this is probably Newt or Watt, who are within themselves really good characters, but they're required R7 for the respective Galactic Legends, and it's just characters you would never want to R7. And what I'm getting at is Dash as a character, as an attacker, you want him R7. Like the amount of damage he does, it's very nice. It's very beneficial, again, both for his ground viability as well for his fleet viability. So that is him right off the bat. Next up is going to be our A tier. So this is who you're going to want to do first, and then second are going to be these guys. So I don't know if you're going to be able to take Adrad immediately to R9. If you can't do that immediately, that doesn't mean you stop doing the rest of everything else, but these are the next 3, in my opinion, that should be worked on, because this is the core of most Rogue One squads. It's the core of my Rogue One squad, both in 3v3 and 5v5. Offensively, it's actually pretty darn sweet. It can beat Grand Inquisitor, which I don't know how many people are facing that, but that is kind of a higher level target. I think it actually has some viability against the DDK Kron if the AI plays it really dumb against you in territory wars, but overall just really solid. At defense, it's fun too. K2 is nice just because you need a solid tank, and he works in both 3v3 and 5v5. Eventually, when the rest of this team gets filled out, you're required to relic 8 Cassian for this event, so he pairs really well with him. And then again, just a good tank overall that keeps people from getting to Adrad. Because really, the whole point of what Adrad wants to do is he wants the battle to drag out for a super long time so that he can get his Hope ability, which requires 100% upload, and then this just wipes out the team. I don't know if I want to go into it in great detail, but he pretty much puts locked healing immunity and no protection on everyone for 4 turns, or at least the enemy team for 4 turns. So if he gets to this 9 times out of 10, maybe even higher than that, it's game over. So you want a good tank to be there. Jin is also just required for the event and very good. She has this really kind of zombie synergy with Adrad, and what I mean by that is you can't kill Jin until you kill Adrad. So Jin is actually pretty flimsy, doesn't matter, because Adrad's not, and especially since you have to get him to R9, which that's kind of annoying, he's actually really hard to kill. So definitely who you want to go after next. This will be your base for the Rogue One team. Really good in 3s, but also it's going to be the heart of the team in 5s. Next up is going to be our B tier. So this is where things start to get a little bit weird too. Mon Mothma's here, and I don't want to be like, you need 5 Rebel Fighters, or 4 Rebel Fighters to complete the Mon Mothma team before you finish Profundity. I don't think that's wise. If you want to do a good Rebel Fighter team after Profundity is already farmed, that's an option. But before, we really just need to go with like the bare minimum to get Mon Mothma off the ground. She's a requirement, and that is Biggs. I do also really like Biggs in here at R3. Number 1, he is a requirement for Jedi Master Luke, so that's pretty cool. But on top of that, I don't mean to discourage anyone, but the Profundity event is not very fun. It can be really RNG dependent, and if you come in with a less than an R3 Biggs, it's going to be even harder. So that's just something kind of to save yourself a little bit of a headache, unless you're just going to be buying packs for those first, at least till it's 5 stars. Even after 5 stars, it's not super fun, but he's pretty much one where as long as someone's not using a legitimate counter to Mon Mothma like Wampa or Iden, Biggs is just a massive pain in the butt, because every single turn that it gets hit, really regardless who on is the rest of the Mon Mothma team, anytime he's critically hit, he gets 100% turn meter. So he's going to be able to go in and then call everyone into assist, because that's Mon Mothma's whole thing. So overall, pretty solid squad. It's good it's okay in 3v3. It's really kind of fallen off the horse in 5v5, but you have to do Mon Mothma, so you might as well just take advantage of it as much as you can. Next up is C tier. This one's pretty self-explanatory. We have both these characters are requirements. You have to do them, and they complete the Rogue One squad. Biston probably is not the best 5th if we're being realistic. It's probably Baze. I don't know what's going to happen with the release of Saw Gerrera, how wildly that's going to change things. I don't have Baze. In fact, Baze more often than not for my roster just ends up being used as a really soft tank so that Hondo will retreat after he kills him because it's a pre-taunt. So I don't use him here. And I don't, very similar to the rest of the Rebel Fighter Squad from Mon Mothma, I don't think it's really worth to do him before. K2 is already good enough to have the team functional, because what you don't want to do, and this is probably pretty important to mention, you do not want to run an Adrad squad in 5v5 or 3v3 for that matter that is not full Rogue One. You lose out on some pretty big bonuses, and what I see a lot of people do, and maybe you'll have to do this too in the very beginning, is they'll throw Hera in there as their 5th, because you're required to do Cassian, Jin, Adrad, as well as I think it's just them. Oh, as well as Biston. So you have 4, but you really want to have the 5th Rogue One, which is K2SO, to be able to complete the synergy, so you're not losing out on all the stuff that Adrad is doing. Next up, last and definitely least, is going to be our D tier, and that's Hera. This is very self-explanatory again. Phoenix are not good. They have not been good for a very long time, and she has no viability outside of that. There's really nothing to say here. Maybe if they get something in the future like an Agent Callus that revives the team and makes them absolutely wonderful. But even then, part of the reason the Phoenix struggles so much is because its leader ability is garbage. Like, it does so little compared to modern leaderships that if anyone gets replaced in the Phoenix squad, it's probably going to be Hera. So I can't really justify saying, oh yeah, definitely go after her. She's going to have a lot of bang for your buck. You do her last. You do her the day the Profundity event hits, so that you could have focused on anything that wasn't her ever. And one other thing I do want to point out is once you're done with Profundity, once you have, everything completely unlocked at 4 stars, and you're getting that every month, you're getting those shards in to make sure that you can complete what you need to be able to complete to be able to get all the way up to 7 stars. Go ahead and check out Phoenix at Gear 12. I really can't encourage them to relics. There's way too many things to do right now as far as relics goes, but with the gear economy changes, making the really old gear like Carbonis and stun guns and stuff like that really accessible. It does help a little bit to have the ships be a little bit tankier. And if you make comparisons between, for example, where my Phoenix ships are right now, between like fully R7'd ones on these sides, it's not that much. It's only like 20,000 in survivability. I don't really think this changes a lot of matchups, having them even higher than this, but having them at least to this point it's really nice. And if the gear is free, which it's not, but if you're at a certain point where it's not as needed on their characters, it can be a really good idea. But again, that's something you do after. You do not need to build a Phoenix team, even up to gear 12, before you get Profundity. So, recap, Dash, freaking amazing. The core of your Rogue One team next. Do something with Mon Mothma. Get the rest of the Rogue One team ready to go. Finish off Hera because you have to. And then once you know what Profundity, gear 12 for Phoenix is definitely an interesting idea. So, thank you guys for watching. We got a lot of really positive feedback last time in regards to Jedi Knight Luke and Gas as well. So we will be doing those next. But until the next time, stay awesome.